Ancora un oggetto non identificato abbattuto nei cieli del Nord America. Sale la tensione con la Cina. Andiamo in diretta dal corrispondente da New York, Claudio Pagliara. Claudio.
Sì, cosa accade sui cieli del Nord America? Questa domanda ormai campeggia su tutti i media americani e canadesi. Ieri un oggetto misterioso non identificato abbattuto da un caccia F-22 dell'aviazione militare americana in un'operazione congiunta con le forze del Canada. In quel momento questo oggetto misterioso di forma cilindrica si trovava proprio sui cieli del Canada. È la seconda volta in 2 giorni che viene abbattuto un oggetto misterioso, e questo viene a una settimana dal pallone spia cinese. Nessuno dice per ora la natura di questi 2 oggetti, bisognerà recuperare i resti per capire a chi appartengono. La linea torna a te, Valentina.
Scripps News national security correspondent Sasha Ingeber is following all these developments, about one a day at this point, Sasha. Okay, they're spotting all these things, and I wonder, is it something new? Is it something like the FedEx logo where once you realize there's an arrow in it, you just can't miss it? Like, how are they spotting all these new things?
Well, U.S. officials have been quick to say that they have advanced their radars, what is essentially called the solid-state phased array radar system, that they've modified filters and gains, which have allowed them to look at the skies differently, to see smaller and slower-moving objects. Now, why did they start doing this? Well, a former senior intelligence official, Chris Mellon, he tells me that after the Chinese surveillance balloon floated over the country, that was an eye-opening experience for the Biden administration.
The administration realized that they needed to open up the aperture on those collection systems, on those radars that we have. And lo and behold, the moment they did, they began to see a lot of other strange things. This is something that some of us have been advocating for a long time. And it's not surprising to me that once they remove the filters on those systems, that they began to see a lot of strange things.
Now, today we also saw John Kirby, the National Security Council spokesperson, talk about how Biden had this historic briefing on unidentified aerial phenomena, basically UFOs, back in 2012, and that he has now ordered more of an intelligence effort to dig into this, and how that is essentially in line with what we reported last week about how the Chinese spy balloon seems to be linked to this new interagency effort to detect unidentified aerial phenomena. Chance.
Sounds like the expert you talked to said, yeah, we always thought that was going to be there once you look. Why weren't they looking all the time?
Well, Mellon was trying to advocate for this for years, but he told me that it didn't happen, and here's why.
The reason this didn't happen earlier is that the military mindset has been, we need to be focused like a laser on the most severe threat, which is intercontinental ballistic missiles and cruise missiles from submarines and possibly bombers. So these systems were designed to filter out anything that did not match the profile of those known threats.
Now, Mellon also says that in some ways, this spy balloon from China did us a favor because now we are going to have a much more capable air defense system. He also says that as long as these filters stay open, we are going to see more of this in the days, weeks, months, years ahead. The question, though, is the U.S. going to keep shooting it down? Well, today, Kirby said that this was shot down in these 3 incidents because they posed risks to civilian air traffic.
So, Sasha, I looked up the numbers here. 65% of Americans believe in intelligent life forms out there. Aliens, in other words, according to Pew. And, I mean, a lot of us have about 0% confidence that if aliens arrived that they would tell us about it. But everyone's asking, could these be aliens? Are you hearing anything?
Well, of course, there's something magical. There's something you can dream about, even though this might be truly terrifying if it were to actually happen. Now, the head of NORAD last night would not rule out the possibility of this, but Kirby absolutely did today. And Chris Mellon agrees. He says that the astonishing qualities of other incidents in the past, such as the Nimitz Carrier Strike Group years ago, when they saw some kind of craft that descended 60,000 feet in 2 few seconds that is not what we saw with these three aircraft in the last few days. He also says that the U.S. launches about 160 high-altitude balloons every day, and this is happening from 92 different locations. And we're not talking about scientific projects or companies like Google. Also, this is a curious point. If it were an academic institution or a company, you would expect to have heard something that they would claim the object for themselves. So recovering these parts is going to be really important in putting the puzzle pieces together here to understanding what exactly these objects are. And then we're going to know whether or not this was a display of hypervigilance by the United States, whether the U.S. was sending a message to adversaries like China, or whether there's something else, maybe something nefarious or mysterious at play. Chance?
Oh boy, yeah, you got the balloons, you got the cylinders, you got the octagons. We don't know what we've got next, but thank you for always coming with answers, Sasha Ingber. Appreciate it.
By the U.S. military in as many days. This latest one happening early this afternoon over Lake Huron. NORAD issuing this order, briefly closing the airspace over Lake Michigan as that object made its way across Wisconsin and then Michigan. It was first spotted yesterday over Montana, although authorities had said it was not a threat. Well, today's object was shot down over northern Lake Huron, and yesterday one was shot down over Canada's Yukon territory, and on Friday one was shot down off the coast of Alaska. Authorities saying that all of these are not at all like the Chinese spy balloon, which was shot down a week ago over the Atlantic. These new items are apparently much smaller. The one shot down today was described as octagonal in nature and was traveling at about 20,000 feet. And that is much lower than the other objects that were flying yesterday and on Friday. All of them were unmanned, and it is not clear exactly who they belong to.
I think now that we have collected the information off the balloon that traveled across the United States, we have the ability to find these balloons, or these objects, I should say, and shoot them down further away from the continental United States.
The wreckage of the object shot down over Lake Huron has not yet been recovered, and efforts are underway to completely recover the wreckage of the objects in Canada and near Alaska.
Shot down by fighter jets just miles off the coast of Alaska yesterday. Unlike the Chinese spy balloon shot down last Saturday, this object demanded more immediate action yesterday. Officials say it was flying much lower at 40,000 feet, making it a dangerous potential threat to civilian aircraft. But now we are learning that U.S. military pilots who approached the craft have given conflicting accounts of what they saw. This new reporting coming in now from CNN national security reporter Natasha Bertrand. Natasha, so this is interesting. This is kind of unusual that these pilots saw different things, and that is sort of, I guess, adding to the mystery of all this.
Yeah, not even the pilots apparently were really able to identify what they saw. And just to take you back for a sec, on Thursday, the U.S. defense officials sent F-35 fighter jets up to try to figure out what this object was that was flying around near Alaska. Those pilots, we have learned, have given very conflicting accounts of what they actually experienced, with some pilots saying that the object interfered with the plane's sensors, other pilots saying that they didn't really experience that, other pilots saying that when they looked at the object, they could identify no identifiable propulsion system, and they did not know how it was actually staying in the air, cruising at that altitude of about 40,000 feet. So this has all added to the Pentagon's wariness of describing in more detail what this object actually is until they can get more information through the debris that they are recovering right now.
And what do we know about the efforts to recover the wreckage of this second object? It looks like NORAD just put out an email a short time ago, and it sounds like they're trying to recover it.
They did, and what we were told yesterday is that the object was shot down over frozen water, so it landed on the ice, essentially. We don't know what kind of condition it's in, whether it is intact, for example, but recovery efforts have been launched, and according to the Defense Department, they have been able to recover a significant amount of debris. Now, notably, they still don't know what this object is, where it came from, or even what direction it was headed in, or what direction it came from. It is just all very murky at this point, but but they do say that the FBI is going to be taking the lead on analyzing the debris. If that sounds familiar, it's because just last week we saw that another Chinese spy balloon, I should say a Chinese spy balloon because we don't know what this one actually is, was shot down, also being analyzed by the FBI. But right now, there are just so many more questions than answers, Jim. Yeah, and as the hours go on, it gets more and more mysterious. All right, Natasha Bertrand, thank you very much. Let's bring in former CIA operative Bob Baer. Bob, I mean, this is starting to sound like something out of the X-Files. I don't want to get carried away here, but what do you make of these different assessments coming in from the pilots of what they saw?
Well, Jim, the speed of those airplanes, F-35s, it's no wonder they all saw different things. And as far as intercepting communications to that vehicle, it's very difficult. I don't want to get too technical, but it could be, frequency hopping, the propulsion. There's so many questions out there that you're absolutely right. Not until they actually go through the debris and see what it's made of and what it looks like in the communications. Obviously, there was some sort of propulsion system that was driving that vehicle. And don't forget, NORAD with Doppler radar is probably going back and looking at where it came from and see if they can track it back to, I don't know, China, Russia, wherever. But it's a great mystery. I'm absolutely fascinated by this. Yeah, I mean, one U.S. official tells us there was no obvious surveillance equipment on board. Some of this is the initial information, initial reporting that comes in, and I suppose things change as they assess what they have on the ground or on the ice there. What does that tell you if that ends up being the case? Well, there's a couple of things that I take away from this, and if it's a foreign-made object and it was sent from a place like China or Russia, it's some sort of provocation against us. I can't imagine a vehicle like this would give the Chinese or the Russians a real intelligence advantage of collecting photographs or signals or things like that. But I think what bothers NORAD and the White House is these probes. We now know there was, a total of 5 balloons, Chinese balloons that have come over the United States. Why are the Chinese doing this? Who's ordering it? And why would you do it right before Blinken, the Secretary of State, is on his way to Beijing? That makes no sense to me. With the balloon, was the Chinese military struck out on its own? So all of these questions, analysts at the CIA and the White House are looking through this and trying to piece this together. Remember, these balloons are flying over 40 places across the world, these Chinese balloons, and there are a lot of aerial vehicles I've been involved in before we've never been able to identify from radar. One we saw, I remember I was involved in, was going Mach 6, which made no sense at all to anybody. And eventually it was just shelved and we couldn't figure it out. Wow. And I guess, the question that you're leading me to with the comments on China is that we have one of two situations, I suppose. One is they're just trying to provoke the U.S. to see what the response might be. The other would be that Xi and the military might not be on the same page, that the folks who want to try to conduct diplomacy with the United States are not on the same page as the military. Could that be it? Exactly. The People's Liberation Army is very difficult to understand. And would they act in non-accordance with Xi? We don't know. I mean, is China close to some sort of military takeover with all these COVID protocols that close down the economy? These are very hard questions to answer. And for American intelligence, getting inside these circles is nearly impossible. It's always been impossible. But it's certainly something the analysts are picking through right now.
Following all weekend, it's happened again. Yet another high-altitude object shot down yesterday by an American F-22 over Canada. We have a report from Christina Raffini in Washington.
The news came first from Canada. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau tweeted that on his order and as part of a joint operation approved by President Biden, an American F-22 fighter shot down the unknown floating object high above Yukon territory.
Bonsoir.
According to Canadian Defence Minister Anita Anand,
aircraft assigned to NORAD successfully took down this high-altitude airborne object at approximately 3:41 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.
The object, described as cylindrical and about the size of a small car, was first detected late Friday night over Alaska, where American F-22s intercepted and tracked it. Neither government has provided further details about what this was or who sent it, but it's the third such known incursion into North American airspace in the past few weeks.
Success.
Friday, American jets downed a similarly sized object above Alaska's icy coast, according to Pentagon spokesperson Brigadier General Pat Ryder.
We have no further details about the object at this time, including any description of its capabilities, purpose, or origin.
And last Saturday,
that is a T-kill. The balloon is completely destroyed.
the Biden administration ordered the takedown of a massive Chinese spy balloon, the size of 3 city buses, that traversed much of the United States before being shot from the skies over the coastal waters of South Carolina.
Meanwhile, the Pentagon is still trying to reach the debris from the object shot down on Friday off Alaska's coast, but those efforts have been hampered by conditions. The recovery zone is minus 45 degrees.
The skies, a U.S. fighter jet working with the North American Aerospace Defense Command to shoot down an object over Canada Saturday.
And it comes just one day after the U.S. took out a different object over Alaska. White House correspondent Mary Alice Parks is live on the North Lawn with the latest. Mary Alice, good morning.
Whit, good morning. 3 times in 1 week, U.S. fighter jets have shot objects out of the sky. And with these last 2 over Canada and Alaska, the White House still unable to confirm what they were or where they were from. Overnight, another unidentified object shot down over the Yukon in Canada, just a day after a U.S. fighter jet shot down an object off the northern edge of Alaska. These back-to-back mysterious objects raising urgent questions about who owns these aircraft and where they could be from. The object over Canada first detected Friday night, Canadian and U.S. planes scrambling to scope it out. President Biden speaking to Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, giving the green light for a U.S. F-22 fighter to take the shot. Canadian officials saying the small cylindrical object was flying at approximately 40,000 feet. Trudeau thanking the long-standing partnership that monitors the sky and the sea, writing, "Thank you, NORAD, for keeping the watch over North America."
They don't want to be caught off guard again, having a balloon float through sovereign airspace when they didn't know about it. So it may be shoot first, ask questions later.
A joint recovery effort now underway. The U.S. military and FBI already working in tough Arctic conditions off the remote coast of Alaska to try to recover and learn more about that other unidentified object brought down Friday. Snow, wind, and little daylight making that operation extremely tough. These latest instances coming less than a week after that Chinese spy balloon was shot down in the Atlantic. The White House seemingly much quicker to act this week, citing the fact that the object brought down near Alaska was flying much lower and potentially a threat to civilian aircraft. Alaska Senator Lisa Murkowski, who had blasted the administration for waiting to down that Chinese spy balloon that flew near her state, now praising the Biden team.
I think the message was very important today to say any aspect of U.S. sovereign territory that is encroached upon, there's going to be consequences to it.
And last night, we also got word of a false alarm. There was a temporary flight restriction over Montana after NORAD said it detected a radar anomaly. They sent up planes to scope it out, saw nothing, but clearly a sign that everyone is on edge, trying to figure out what's going on in the sky. Whit.
Mary Alice, thank you. Joining us now is Mick Mulroy, ABC News national security and defense analyst and former Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense for the Middle East. Mick, good morning to you. It's great to have you. So now we've had multiple flying objects shot down by American fighter jets. The administration says China is behind at least one of them, but could there be others? Which countries are the likely suspects here?
So what it looks like, this program has been going on for several years. And I think now that we have collected the information off the balloon that traveled across the United States, we have the ability, the signature, if you will, to see these types of balloons. And now we can look back and find that we believe that these balloon program has traveled over 40 countries, 5 continents. It's very extensive. And I think that same signature has given us the ability to find these balloons, or these objects, I should say, and shoot them down further away from the continental United States.
But what about other countries? I mean, Is China behind all of them, or you think other countries like Russia could be involved?
So I do think several countries use these balloon-type systems as a supplement to their satellite systems, of course, and some countries, of course, can't afford those satellites. So it is used by many. We don't know that if this is China. We should certainly wait for the facts to lead to the conclusions, because it's going to further rupture the relationship with the United States and China if it is. It could also be Russia. Russia may want to drive that wedge, so they may be releasing these balloons. We need to determine who we think did this before taking any kind of actions, whether they're military or diplomatic.
How worried should Americans be about this?
Well, I think they should be pretty worried. I mean, if it is China, and it's not some kind of incompetence, and I don't think it is, it would indicate to me that they're trying to probe the United States using different size balloons and configurations, potentially to make it more difficult to detect. And these surveillance balloons, if that's what this is, they can collect both signals intelligence and imagery. They can get right over our most sensitive installations, just like the one up here where I am in Montana. Our intercontinental ballistic missile silo is obviously very significant. So Americans in general should be worried about this and really wondering, if it is China, why they're doing this.
Something to watch very closely in the coming days. Mick Mulroy, thank you so much for your time this morning. We do appreciate it.
In Michigan è stato abbattuto il quarto oggetto volante intercettato nell'ultima settimana sui cieli americani e canadesi. Carlo Maria Miele.
L'oggetto volante ha struttura ottagonale e corde fluttuanti. Quando viene identificato sabato sta sorvolando il Montana a 6.000 metri di altezza. Le autorità statunitensi ne seguono il percorso fino al confine col Canada. Lì, sul lago Huron, nel Michigan, arriva l'ordine di abbattimento del presidente Biden, eseguito da un F-16. Quello di ieri è il quarto oggetto volante intercettato e abbattuto in Nord America nel giro di un paio di settimane. Gli ultimi due venerdì e sabato in Canada e Alaska. Ma l'episodio più rilevante risale a fine gennaio, quando le forze armate statunitensi avevano individuato e poi abbattuto in South Carolina un pallone spia cinese. L'episodio aveva fatto saltare la visita a Pechino del segretario di Stato USA Blinken, contribuendo a inasprire le relazioni tra le due potenze. Resta invece da definire la natura degli ultimi tre oggetti volanti. Tra le ipotesi c'è quella che si tratti di mezzi di aziende private utilizzati per la sorveglianza satellitare.